Okay, welcome back. I'm going to now continue my 32 and 32 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back in '06, that's when Bill Cowher retired after the Pittsburgh Steelers won their, I think, fourth or fifth Super Bowl at the time. Mike Tomlin took over the head coaching role, and since that 2006 season, they have never had a below 500 record. They've finished at least with a 500 record or better, and they've made the postseason X amount of years. They've had many division titles. So even though this past season they did not make the playoffs, they still finished with an above 500 record. So obviously Tomlin knows a thing or two about coaching, especially if he's able to get as much success out of the team. Doesn't necessarily mean he has. Every year you're going to have different players coming and going, and obviously for the longest time, for I think 15 or so odd years, they had or 16 years they had Ben Roethlisberger behind center calling the shots, and now that he's retired, they are obviously going through a new phase and trying to get a new quarterback. And I'm going to kind of change things up a little bit, where instead of just talking about this team stats, I'm actually going to go through the individual stats. So I'm going to be exiting this screen and kind of going back and forth. But yeah, so last year they finished with a 9-8 record. At the week 14, they were actually sitting at 5-8, and then 15, 16, 17, 18. So the last 4 weeks they went on a 4-game winning streak to just get over that 500 hump, and they just narrowly missed the postseason as well. So I got to give props to that, like I said, Tomlin and all that group, because they clearly are doing something right if they're able to have as much success in the tenure that he's had as a coach. So looking at their home and away stats, so they finished with a 4-4 record, so a 500 record at home, and they finished with a 5-4 record on the road. So pretty respectable on the road. You're not always guaranteed to get a W. So the fact that they finished with an above 500 record away from home just goes to show that the team is not as bad as some people may think. And then the key thing here is, over in the division column, they split their series 3-3 with the other three teams that they played against. And evidently, if you do not have an above 500 record against said teams in your division, you're probably not going to be able to make it into the postseason. So I'm going to quickly go over a few additions and subtractions before I move on to the individual stats. So a few people that they've lost: Cameron Sutton, a cornerback. He is now signed with the Detroit Lions. And Miles Jack, the linebacker, he is signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. And a few additions: Patrick Peterson, the cornerback. I believe he played last season with the Minnesota Vikings after spending quite a lot of time in the desert with the Arizona Cardinals. Isaac Siomalo, an offensive lineman, an offensive guard, I should say. He has been signed by the Steelers, and he played for, let's take a look at his bio, with the Philadelphia Eagles. So obviously he was part of the team that went to the Super Bowl just a season ago. Evidently did not come out on top, but I'm sure he can possibly help that offensive line. And the linebacker Cole Holcomb has been signed by the Steelers, and he played last season with Washington Commanders / Washington football team / Washington. Well, I don't want to say the original name because heaven forbid I get taken off of YouTube because you can't say Washington's former name. But he spent the last 4 years with the Washington Commanders. So they brought over a few pieces to hopefully help boost up the defense and offense. So we'll see how they fare in this upcoming season. So before I make my predictions going into this upcoming year, like I said, I just want to take a look at a couple of individual stats. So if you can just bear with me. Stats and awards. And I'll just scroll down to the Steelers. So one of the guys they brought in last offseason was Mitch Trubisky, and he spent the last 2 seasons before that as a backup to Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills. So he came into the Pittsburgh Steelers with the mindset that he would be the starter, and unfortunately he did not fare out as well as people would hope. He finished with a grand total of 4 touchdowns compared to 5 picks. Kenny Pickett seems to be the guy that they're going to be he's going to be like the quarterback of the future, as you can obviously see over in that right-hand column. So he finished with 7 touchdowns and 9 picks, so it didn't fare out that well. But I imagine as he progresses and obviously gets a little older, has some more experience, he very well could pick up where Roethlisberger left off. So If I had to make my predictions going into the 2023/2024 season, I don't think the Steelers are going to make the postseason. If they end up getting an above 500 record, that would be astonishing because I feel like they've just had an above 500 record forever. But yeah, I believe they could very well finish 9-8 again. Maybe they'll finish 8-9. Uh, I just don't see them as a 10-plus win team, especially when you have the likes of the Ravens and the Bengals in your division. And those two teams, in my opinion, are pretty much like a lock to get into the postseason. So I believe it's going to be 2 straight years where the Steelers are not seeing any postseason action. But again, just like I always predict, I could easily bite my tongue come January, and they could shock a lot of people. So, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. And until next time, take care.